working with the structural directives and attribute directives. Today we are going to discuss about detailing of attribute directives. And in the attribute directives, so we have an attribute directive ng model. Yesterday I already told you. So we already used that attribute directive. And another important is ng class. ng class, it is an attribute directive which is used to assign a CSS class dynamically to any element. That means according to the situation, so the effects can change dynamically to any element. Actually, it has several techniques. That means it can change the appearance of HTML element dynamically. You can apply CSS classes dynamically by using three references actually. Three references, we have a string reference, and we have array reference, and we have object reference. We have three references, string, array, and object reference. So generally, string reference is nothing but if you want to apply a CSS class, so for any element, you have to use ng class. It is dynamically defined for any HTML element, and this ng class is expecting a CSS class name. If you are defining a string type, that means then in single quote, you have to define the CSS class name. You have to configure that CSS class name. So ng class can use any CSS class. If you want to apply any one specific class, then you can use a string reference. You can use array reference. In array reference, you can apply multiple classes. For one element, if you want to apply multiple classes, ng class, it can use array reference. Array reference means you can put in a square brace and you can define the class name. That means class 1 and class 2, like an array, class 2 like this. That means more than one class can be applied to an element dynamically. Through string reference, you can apply one class. Through array reference, you can apply multiple classes. There is object reference. Through object reference, you can write like this, ng class. And through object reference, you know object reference will be in curly brace. Through object reference, you can define class name, and do you want to apply or not? That means a boolean true or false. So another class, so you want to apply or not. True will apply the class, false will remove the class. That means dynamically you can switch between the classes by using this object reference. That means for a situation, it will add the class. For another situation, it will remove the class. So it can switch between the classes. By using object reference, you can manage that. Let's see how we can do this, how we can handle and how we can work with this. Technically, how do we define the classes? So how we can use all these various references and define them. Let's create one example here. So I'm creating a new component here for. So let's add a component. I'm adding a new component here. Ng generate component. So class demo. Yeah. So we are generating a component. And yeah, this is the component. And in this, I will keep this in the startup. So the class demo component. Okay. In index class demo component. So class demo component, that is in the startup. Okay. So we configured that component class demo, and we are using it. So let's first test, is it working? Yeah. Now we need to design and apply the classes dynamically to particular element. We need to dynamically apply that. So what are the various techniques? Let's see a simple point here. So suppose this is the class demo working fine. Yeah. Okay, it working fine. So now let's go to the class demo component. And in the component, so we have the HTML. So let's create a simple design here. So a div and class container. Okay, fluid. And this we have a heading, say select theme. Okay, and we have a div class as a form group, and I'm adding a select, and the select is using some class form control. This is general CSS classes we are applying here, and we have an option. So option as a dark theme, and another option. So we have some light theme like this, and option have a value, so dark, and this option is having a value, so that is light, like this. Now below this I will add another div, and so class as a form group, and in this I just kept a heading here. So we are just defining a heading here. So let's keep the heading. Yeah. And in this we want to apply them. That means this is the heading, some sample text. There can be a lot of content. Just we need to handle this. Now the point is, when user selects the theme, so dark theme or light theme, that theme must be applied to this page. That means it should change the appearance. So dynamically we need to apply one CSS class. So we need to configure that. We need to apply that. So here we are going to the class CSS file, class demo CSS file. And in the CSS, we are creating some classes. Dark is a class. And here, background color. So we set green. So some color, some white. Okay. And the text align, so center. We can apply to entire body also. Just border as 2 pixel solid black. This is one. Padding 10 pixel. And the same I am defining. The same I am defining for another is light. So dot light. This is another set of colors. Another set of colors here. So that is light. And the background, I defined this as some light green. And color and center, and here I defined as green. That is a different color appearance here we are defining. Now we will go to the class and we need to apply that. So here dynamically we need to apply the effects. You see the name of the classes, one is dark, another one is light. If you want to apply this to your content, that means I am applying to this heading, then I am using ng class. Ng class is an attribute directive, and through that I am applying a specific value. So in the double quote, we have to add a single quote, and here we have it is a string reference. we have to define the class name dark, and you can see that a dark class is applied for this text. You can see the dark is applied for that particular text. It is applied. So I want to change here. So I will change this to light, and it will apply the light theme for that particular content. So that means we are applying a CSS class, but I need to change it dynamically. So ng class is an attribute directive which is changing the class. Through HTML, when we give the class, it will be a specific class. Of course, through JavaScript also, you can change the class. Through JavaScript, how you can change the class, get element by ID, you can apply the class name and you can configure it. So here we can define by using ng class directly any class name, but we must able to change the class dynamically. So what I can do is, so I can bring that class name from the drop down and use it. That means first we need to collect the value from drop down and apply this here. So let's go to the TS file. In the TS file, I am creating here in the TS file, I am adding a simple variable, a property. Effects is a property. This effects property, or I will simply write like as theme. Theme is a property, and by default theme is having the value light. That means it is defined with particular value. I will go to that HTML here. In the HTML, I need to bind this theme to the drop down. That means here we are defining a simple ng model. Through ng model, we are configuring that theme here. So by default the theme is light, and it is binded to this drop down, and the same I have to use for heading also. That means for heading, here we are defining ng class, and here we are configuring theme. That means we need to bring that and use it. So the value coming from theme. So that means we need to apply the value theme directly here. This time the value is coming from this ng class, it is configuring that and defining that here. We are configuring that and using it here. Now that means whenever the value changes in drop down, that value will be applied to this class. So now I will save this here, and you can see by default the theme is a light theme. I will give this as a light theme. The default theme is the light theme. And when you run this, this is the light theme applied there. And when I select dark theme, that will be applied to this content. And I select light theme, that will be applied to that content. So dynamically you are changing the theme. You are changing the theme means you are changing the appearance. You are changing the appearance. You can change the appearance. You can change the appearance of the content. That means the entire content you can change. You can change the appearance of body. You can change the background of body. It depends on how you want to apply the effects and configure the effects. Currently, we just applied for the headings. We are configuring for the headings. We can apply anywhere. So here, this is a string reference. In a string reference, you can directly define, any particular class, and you can apply the class. So one class is applied for this, So that means either it is the light class, or it is the dark class. So the class is applied for this. But sometimes we need to apply multiple classes. Dynamically, we need to apply the multiple classes. So to one element, we need to configure multiple classes. How you can apply multiple classes dynamically here, configure the multiple classes dynamically here. So generally, how you manage multiple classes, let's see. Technically, so if you want to apply multiple classes to one element, usually we can configure an array reference actually. This is array reference. Array reference allows you to define multiple classes to one element because we can get the classes from different location. From different classes, different location, we can access them and you can use them dynamically. For example, let's see one array reference here. So generally, multiple classes, when you are applying for HTML, what you do is just you use a space. With a space, we can apply multiple CSS classes. But here dynamically, when you are applying multiple classes, it is recognized as an array reference actually. Through an array reference, you can define and configure the classes. For example, see, this is the sample text. And to the sample text, we want to apply some effect. Currently, I am just using a dark theme, light theme, so that user can select any specific theme and apply that particular theme. Here only one class is applied. So either dark or light, like this one is applied. For example, if there are multiple to apply, so I will show you how we can manage multiple. So I will remove this design. This is a general string reference. How you can apply multiple, so how you can configure multiple. Let's see one example here. For example, I am removing this drop down, and I am writing here classes here. See, I am defining the classes. So one is text effects. Text effects is the class. This text effects class is having text align as the center. Text effects is having text align as center. That is text effects. Okay. Another important. So just I defined text align center, and color I defined as suppose red. That is text effect. This is one class. Another class. Suppose I said back effects. So back effects, I am defining some background color, some yellow, that is the background color. And another one, so we are defining some border effects, and border effects we are defining. So border as some 4 pixel, so some dotted border, and some border is red, something like this now. So we have 3 classes here. We want to apply those 3 classes. We want to apply those 3 classes to this sample text. Generally, how you can apply multiple classes to an element. For example, here we are defining an array reference now, an array reference. In the array reference, we are applying here, first one is text effects. We are applying text effects, that is the class. Through an array reference, we are applying that text effects. You can see text effects apply. I want to apply another, then comma, and I am defining here. So back effects. So that means you can see the second class back effects also applied here. I want to apply border effects. That means I need to just put a comma. Here we need to define. So border effects. So it will apply the border effects, and it will display that border effects. That means dynamically we are defining these effects and multiple. And if there are many classes to apply, then generally we use an array reference. This also we can access dynamically and configure this dynamically. For example, so how we can configure this dynamically, that means how we can apply multiple classes. This is an array reference. And if you want to apply this dynamically and configure this dynamically here, so we can create separate elements. We can collect the value from them and we can configure them here. So the first value for text effects, the second value for back effects, and third value for the border effects. So then what we can do is here, I am selecting here. So I'm creating a simple, suppose a div. So, and here we are keeping a select, and this select is having an option. It is having an option. So you want to apply text effects. That means you have to select text effects. Another will have back effects. Another will have border effects. We can add multiple drop downs. But instead of multiple drop downs, actually you can simply use a text box. Input type is equal to text, and and here class as form control. And I think majority of you people know is inside the text box, if you type any value inside the text box, that means when you are typing, I think majority of you know that. So whatever the value collected from text box is string array. Is string array. That means if I enter John inside that text box, so actually technically it is returned as John like this.